Hey, welcome to another episode of the Fit Growth Machine podcast. I'm Brian Roisentul, your host, and today we have a great guest. Her name is Angela Clark, and she's a digital strategist that has worked on some of the most iconic American brands from the likes of the Levi's, Pottery Barn, eBay, and now Patagonia. Angela has specialized in building digital businesses and high-performing growth-centric teams. But before diving deeper into this, let me tell you that this episode is brought to you by BSR Digital. At BSR Digital, we help e-commerce brands that want to scale their business to a next level through Facebook, Instagram, and Google Ads. Yes, even after the iOS 14 update. Now, more than ever, we understand that it's really important to level up the marketing and design a solid strategy, as what used to work is probably not anymore, right? So if your e-commerce brand lack a solid plan and professional team to increase sales, we can help the same way we have helped more than 1,000 brands like yours for over a decade. To learn more, you can visit us at bsrdigital.com, and you can also email us at hello@bsrdigital.com. So today, as I promised, now I have Angela here with me. Hey, Angela, thanks for being on the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. This is an honor for me to have you here, and yeah, I love everyone listening to hear your story.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been in retail my entire career. How I got into it is a little bit of a stumble. I was passionate about fashion as a child, but being a baby of the 80s, I was going to be an investment banker. So I got a finance degree. I was planning to go to grad school and just was not, it was a struggle. My degree was a struggle for me mentally. I love numbers. I'm really excited. It's paid off for me in the long run in the end, but getting into the banking industry in the early 90s was just not for me. So someone basically told me that I had the perfect balance of fashion and business knowledge to get into merchandising and buying. So my first job was a buying job at a department store, going through the merchandise training programs, which is a thing of the past that used to happen. And I've had done everything from product buying, product design, merchandising, started in catalog. I've done home goods, I've done fashion. And in the last 10 years, I've really been focused on e-commerce. It's the most exciting space to me in the retail world, because it's always evolving. You know, how I started running businesses and what I focused on 10 years ago is very different than what I'm doing now, even 3 years ago. You know, let's be real, like it consistently changes. And so I think that that's been my passion. And what's been really fun for me is to work for, some amazing people, amazing brands. And I've gotten further away from the product passion piece of it, but I think the business strategy piece is what really gets me excited. And I'm excited to talk to you about that today.
That's awesome. That's great. Yeah, a great story. And yeah, I think we all come from different backgrounds. I don't know if there's such a thing as the Commerce University, So it's great that coming from different backgrounds, you can apply what you know from, I don't know, your past experience, business,
Yeah.
banking, or whatever it is. Mine is computer science to
Yeah.
whatever you do next. And yeah, there's always something you can apply. So talking about probably some current situations, the e-commerce space is going through something. Every business in the world probably is going through a special situation nowadays. First COVID, then I don't know, inflation, recession, supply chain, many things going on. So what's your take on that, on the current situation the e-commerce space is going through?
Yeah, talk about a whirlwind. We've all been waiting for COVID to die down and come back to a sense of normalcy. And now we're definitely not seeing that. And I was talking to a colleague the other day, and I am grateful for my experience now because I feel like the retail space is literally dealing with everything all at once. There was a time where you were just dealing with inflation. There was a time we were only dealing with supply chain issues or too much inventory or not enough inventory. We're literally dealing with all of it right now at the same time. And Patagonia is no different. We have a lot of some things that people maybe aren't so excited about, and not enough of the things that people are really coming to us for. So trying to balance that out. And then people's shopping behaviors have been continually evolving since COVID started, and it hasn't changed. Stores are seeing nice pickup, and for some brands who are really more focused on digital, that's a challenge. So yeah, for me right now, I think like many of my colleagues, we're trying to evaluate, how to weather the storm best, what resources are most valuable, what we think realistically we can do, and try to predict a little bit of headwinds, but obviously no one has a crystal ball. So it's going to be quite a bumpy ride for the next, I say, year, probably.
Yeah, I mean, probably again, it's a lot of hits, like one after the other. COVID, recession, as you said. Is there like a way, if there's any, to prepare
Yeah.
for things like this? No crystal ball, but once you identify something's about to happen, how do you prepare for that?
Yeah. So I think it's best to really hone in on really seeing what's happening in your business. And so I'll use Patagonia, and I can't get too specific because they're privately held, but we're struggling for traffic just like everyone else. We're seeing less traffic than we saw last year. Traffic probably comparable to maybe 3 years ago, which wasn't the plan. So the question is, how do we either do we just decide we're not going to get much traffic and we're going to maintain our spend budgets, or do we decide we're going to reinvest in spend and re-strategize on where we're spending dollars so we can try to make up some of that traffic miss, knowing that might mean we're going to take a conversion hit. So those are the things we're kind of evaluating right now. And for me, one of the things I like to do is I like to overshoot my goal. So if I have a goal, let's just say is $100 million, I have 3 strategies to achieve 110, right? And so on paper, it says 100 million, but in my mind, I've got 1 or 2 tricks up my sleeve. So if something doesn't work, I've got some other lever to pull on. So one might be invest more in my spend to try to overshoot traffic. If I say I need 1 million visits, how can I spend for 120 just in case something happens, right? From an inventory standpoint, I might overinvest in something so I can get that extra 10 million that I might think that I might need. So I think in all my years of retail, there's always something that comes up that throws you for a curveball. And I've learned early on, if you're shooting for your target and you're just shooting for that number, you're not overshooting it, you're never going to make it. You're always going to miss it. So the only way I've always achieved my goal is to try to overshoot my goal.
So that's
And I've had a
that's
pretty good track record of always making my goals. So
that's great. And something that probably you tell me that helps, I mean, with this whole, I mean, with leading, I mean, with in leading with this whole thing and situation, is probably building from since the beginning, a scalable business model, right? I mean,
yeah.
because probably will be helpful for all of these unknowns and probably situations you cannot predict, and those you can as well. So, what are probably some of the key things that a well-established company, as well as a company starting out, should consider? What are probably some of the factors to consider when building a
Yeah.
scalable model?
So I think from a scalability standpoint, one thing, and that's kind of been my specialty for the last, let's say, 8 years or so. I think one of the key things is just being really clear about how you want to scale the business. So is that through, promoting? Is that through not through promoting? That totally changes how you're going to strategize and what tactics you're going to take and where you're going to invest your time and energy. Does that mean you're going to get into new channels? Maybe you're going to add SMS to your program that you didn't have before. Maybe you're going to look for, high value affiliate programs that maybe you didn't use before. Depending on what those tactics are, then I go back to, looking at my tech stack, looking at my sales, not only my sales plan, but then, I'm super hyper focused on margin because I think that's my merchant brain that I'm always like, I only want to do things that are profitable. And I know that sounds rudimentary, but I've been with brands, there's a lot of retailers that make a lot of money and they're not making a profit, right? And most times they don't sustain the storms. So the brands that are still standing on my resume are ones who are hyper focused on the top line and bottom line. So for me, it's, looking at that bottom line once I've decided how I'm going to grow the top line business, what strategies and tactics I'm going to do, and then making sure that I'm spending in the right places. And sometimes that means making a tough call. And for instance, like social is a great example. Do I have to be on every single platform for every single brand? Brands make that tough call. Like, I'm going to be on Twitter. I'm not going to be on TikTok. I'm going to be on Snapchat. I'm not going to be on, whatever that might be, based on the brand and based on the customer that you're trying to target. And I think you have to be comfortable and confident that you've made that decision for the right reason and kind of weather the storm. And then if it's not right, you kind of pivot as you go.
You ever made those tough calls? Probably, I don't know if in Patagonia or in former companies you worked at.
Yeah. Some of those calls were, let's say, True Religion is a great example. We had to make a decision on a call center. This was actually slightly before COVID, but COVID just accelerated it. We were paying for an overseas call center. It was very expensive. Is a high touch brand. You go into a store, the people there really want to help you. You're never going to walk in the store and not be greeted and not be helped in service. So we want to have that same high touch experience on the digital side of the business. But at that time, the expense was just so overwhelming, and the contract was horrible, which I, of course, didn't negotiate. And so we just had to make the decision that, we've got people here in California that can service people through email, through chat. So we actually got rid of phone service and we implemented, AI chat and chat service so that we could actually give the team in-house, our customer service team, the tools so that they can service people. And it might not be the best answer in the short term. For the long term, it was, for the short term, it was the right thing to do. Long term, we will get, when things got back on track, we plan to add some phone service back in again. And, some customers are going to be mad about that, but as long as we were actually servicing the customer and still getting their help that they need, which we were, that was the right call to make. And it saved us, I'm going to say, like $700,000 a year. It was really the right thing to do. And that was before we went into bankruptcy. So thank God I did that. Right? So when we came out of that and we started to scale the business and had a healthy business, now we're suddenly a lot more profitable. And now we can invest in, do we do something local, or how do we, find another company that's more scalable and fits the business model for us better.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, if your head is not above water, you cannot help anybody, right? So it's better to be profitable and to make those tough calls and still be in
Yeah.
business and help or serve your customers as well. And I also know that, I mean, we've been talking about this in many episodes, that it's people buy products, of course, or services, right? But it's not what they care the most about, right, anymore. They buy probably experiences, they buy from brands that stand for something. So
Yeah.
how do you think that probably having a clear vision and mission can help a brand succeed nowadays?
Yeah, I think Patagonia is the ultimate example of that. I'm recently new to the brand. I'm on month 5 now. And what I see is, Patagonia has had the same mission from the very beginning, right? They want to do great things. Our mission now is to save the home planet. They want to make as minimal of impact as possible. They want to help lead the example with other businesses on, if you put the right mindset as far as, I'm going to put in a business model that's sustainable, that's not impacting the business in a negative way. If we can do that profitably and successfully, then we can show other companies that they can do that as well. And because they've had the same mission for so long and it's so laser focused, as a new person coming in at a pretty high level role, I'm not spinning my wheels on kind of like, so what are we doing? What's the focus here? Well, how do I kind of fit in what I'm doing? It's like, that part's solid. We all know, every single person knows. In fact, the founder wrote a book about it, right? So you're crystal clear on like what the vision is, and the power of that is, one, the talent that we bring in is just unmatched. Like, every time you post a job posting, you're getting tons and tons of people who respect the brand, who want to work for the brand. I think that's one of my biggest takeaways. Secondarily, it minimizes a lot of confusion and spend. You can really just go back to the drawing board and say, is this supporting the mission? Yes or no? because especially in digital, there's so many new shiny objects and tools and things that are popping up, and you want to always have the latest and greatest, but sometimes you're just like, that sounds cool, but it's not right for the brand because it doesn't fit this mission, right? So being super focused on that, I think really empowers everyone, no matter what their level and talent is or what their input is to the company, to be able to fit that mission.
Yeah, I think that sometimes, I mean, by having a mission and a vision, first you are aligned with your team members or the entire team, right? And that's important,
Yeah.
the new hires. And also, you know, who, I mean, you probably have put out there a clear message on whether as a customer this is for you or not. And by repelling some people, you're attracting even more your target audience, right? So it is,
Absolutely.
nothing is for everyone, like, you know, so each brand has an audience, but if they don't stand for something, whatever that is, or if they don't have a clear vision, they don't know, as you said, probably what shiny objects to
Yeah.
avoid, and also which customers do they want, and the same for the customers, they don't know if that brand is for them or not, right? So
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. And part of probably choosing what's for the brand and not for them is probably something you mentioned earlier about the factors to for the tough decisions, right? Whether to be on many platforms or in one. So probably talking now about sales and traffic. You know,
Yeah.
what do you guys do there? If you can talk about that, or what have you done in the past? What do you think is working right now for e-commerce
Yeah.
brands?
Yeah, so I think, and just kind of talking to, I'm in a couple different groups where we're talking with other, executives and other really amazing brands. And I think some things that, obviously you talked about the Facebook challenges on how they're kind of restructured their marketing plans. And those people who kind of put all their eggs in one or two baskets definitely struggled a little bit more. We had explored, when I was at True Religion, we had explored, connected TV, which actually worked quite well for us. We had gotten into a more, expanding our affiliate programs. So then when we actually started to see, diminishing returns in our Facebook advertising, we had other things that we could lean into and pivot on. So I think, constantly, I'm probably going to sound like I'm talking on both sides of my head now, because now you're constantly exploring new options and new tools, I think is really important. And I think, the digital commerce space is just getting more and more complex, and it is a bit of a spider web. And I think you have to be a little comfortable to be able to kind of be out there and see what makes sense for you. So Patagonia is a little different. They walked away from Facebook advertising because they didn't believe in the way that they were censoring or not censoring content. So that's, a little bit of a crutch for us. So we had to find other tactics, exploring TikTok a little bit more for that younger generation, Snapchat, and app advertising, I think, is something that's a huge opportunity for us, which the brand hasn't explored yet. Luckily for me, there's a lot of things that they haven't explored. They're not doing SMS in a big way, which I think is a huge miss for a business of our size. And so there's a lot of different tools and tactics from other roles that I'm looking to kind of infuse here, just so that you have some safety net and cushions, because, like you said, it's always evolving. 2 years from now, there'll be some new platform or some new thing that everybody's jumping on that we don't even know is going to help our business right now.
Yeah, at least that's very true. And what we see, at least with our clients, and we belong to some e-commerce communities as well. And what we see is that, I mean, as we all know, we really, as you said in the beginning, in the sponsor message, we need to level up the marketing, and that's actually true. And it's something said by one of the top influencers in the industry, and it's basically that everything is changing. And before, everyone was using one or two platforms. Now everyone is in different places, so we need to probably be there so they can discover your brand, your message, and also tailor made for them. It's not the same promoting Patagonia for the younger generation than for the other one, right?
Absolutely.
So I think that we need to take a probably a more holistic approach and analysis of the whole thing is versus what it was before. Oh, what is coming from Facebook ads? What is coming from Google ads? What is coming, like, everything is coming from everywhere. Probably we need to measure and track correctly through
Yep.
attribution systems, whichever you use. There are many out there, but
Yep.
the user journey got really complex, and we need to understand that probably, I don't know, just saying, TikTok could be great for introducing the brand to that market, but probably it's not going to generate conversions right
Right.
away. But when you take a
Absolutely.
look at first touch attribution, meaning the first interaction of that customer after they bought, oh, it's like, oh, it's coming from a TikTok, like, I don't know, a month ago, right? But then
Yep.
it ended up converting through a Google search or whatever, right? So
Yes.
same with the other platform. So it's more complex, and it's more, I don't know if more ad spend required, but we need to, probably the planning got more complex, and we need to be more
Absolutely.
patient, which more, that is not something aligned with the current context, right? Being patient is not a thing ever, but
Yeah.
right now, right?
Yeah, depending on the brand. Like my last brand, that patience was not, that word didn't even exist. Luckily,
Yeah,
Patagonia is a little, I think also working with privately held organizations, typically they're making more long-term vision
yeah,
decisions, so there's a little more patience there, but you're right. It is definitely really critical to, be able to measure, those attributions in a different way where, last click is just not, it's not going to cut it anymore.
I
If
I
you
don't
want a
want to,
realistic view.
yeah, I don't want to, yeah, it's not a thing. I always say the same example. It's like, who recommended a movie? I was watching yesterday Titanic. I don't know, right? It's a new movie, right?
Yeah.
And I said, oh, I don't know. 2 weeks ago, a friend said, Brian, you should watch Titanic. Great movie, 3 hours. You'll enjoy. And then
Yeah.
last week, I don't know. My mother told me, Brian, you should watch Titanic. Then my wife, and then so and then I watched Titanic and say, hey, I wasted 3 hours of my life, or I really loved it, right? Who should I thank or kill? I don't know, right? Is that my wife? Probably. Or is it like the first one? Probably
Yeah.
everyone had something, right?
Yeah,
To do with me
absolutely.
watching Titanic. So it's like, oh, okay. So we need to take a different approach. That's
Yeah.
one thing. And the other one is, probably we've been discussing about zero party data. And without being too technical, basically we have like, uh, we live in rented land, and we brands are struggling with that right now. And it's kind of expected because we need to leverage the platforms out there.
Yeah.
So Facebook ads, Google ads. So we get their audience. People are pixeled. So we actually get our website visitors, buyers, blah, blah. But then tracking is going away. The cookies next year are going away, and many things are going to. So where are customers? How do we know what they want, what they don't want? We are losing
Yeah.
like the accuracy through interest targeting or lookalike on it. So zero party data allows brands to, now more than ever, because this is not a new technique, but now more than ever,
Yeah.
to quiz them, survey them, to get data from them willingly. I mean, they willingly fill out that info for you. And it's always great. So you can actually gauge interest, try to understand who they are, what they want, and all those stuff,
Yeah.
and own that data, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it's funny because like you said, it's not something that's new, but it's become more valuable. And it's also true about the marketing infrastructure these days as well. It's like the idea of not expecting the dollar you're spending right now to impact revenue today is actually old school, right? Like before there was digital and print and media, the old school media buyers, they were like, I'm putting ads in 10 magazines because I just want you to see the brand over and over again and eventually you'll buy, right? And so it's almost like we've come almost 360 on that mindset, but in the digital space in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, exactly. So I really enjoyed the conversation. I have probably a question I always ask the guest to, probably wrap up the conversation, because I really love to read and to, to acknowledge people that has been have been great to you in this case. So probably what I wanted to ask you is if you have any favorite books you can recall right now. It could be a business book or not,
Mhm.
right? A book
Yeah.
that you really wanted to recommend to the audience.
I'm gonna say the book that probably had a huge impact on me in my career is called Smart Women, Smart Moves. And the reason for it is it was one of those books where you read a sentence and then it just like hits you like a bolt of lightning. And I read it probably 10 times in a row. And I can distinctly remember it because I was a type of person where, I'd feel like I had a challenge. I was always good at what I did, but then people pile more stuff on me. And the next thing I know, I'm drowning and I'm about to go into burnout. I'm like, why does this keep happening to me? And in the book, she said, if the same thing keeps happening to you, that means you haven't learned the lesson you need to learn. And you can go to a new job, you can go to a new place, but that same lesson is going to come back to you. So you have to just figure it out what it is you need to learn and then grow from that. And then you'll get a new challenge. But if it keeps coming back to you, it's because you haven't learned what you needed to learn. And I was like, oh my God. So I think that's a very powerful book. And I
Could you
think for
repeat that one
women,
more time if you remember? I
yeah,
really
it's called Smart Women, Smart Moves.
the
Is
sentence,
the
I mean
title.
the phrase.
Oh, the sentence. Oh, if you it said something like if you haven't learned, if you keep getting the same challenge over and over again, it's because you haven't learned the lesson you needed to learn.
I really like
And
it. Makes you think.
yeah, it's really, honestly, I come because I would literally say to myself, why is this happening to me again? And that's personal life and career, right? And in career in particular, it was very bold because I literally had the same pattern repeating. And so I was like, okay, got it. So now when those things happen, I'm like, okay, what is it that I'm supposed to learn from this? And let me figure that out because it's for me to grow, right? So it's here for me for a reason. It seems like a challenge. It might feel terrible at the moment, but it's here for my own personal growth. So I need to take that and own it and learn from it. And that book, I think, is also really powerful for women it's an old book, but trying to learn just to kind of how use their feminine power in a powerful way in the workspace, which isn't often celebrated sometimes in corporate America, even
Yeah.
to this day. Yeah, so I would say that's probably one of the most impactful books that I've read outside of some metaphysics stuff.
That's awesome. I really liked the sentence, so I will definitely check it out. And of course, everyone listening, it will be in the show notes as everything we
Yeah.
mentioned. So then the last question probably I have for you is about the mentors. I don't know, did you have any mentors? Do you want to give them a shout out?
Yeah, absolutely. I think most of my mentors have been people that I've worked for directly who have seen me, taken an interest in me, and have been there for me to this day. So I would say Doyle Bates, who was my manager at Pottery Barn. She was fantastic, and still to this day, I still connect with her. Sam Bright, who's somebody I worked with at eBay, who has been an amazing mentor, amazing talent. He's now on to Upworks, which is just to this day, I'm like, there's certain people you call, and you're like, okay, I've got this thing going on. And then another friend of mine, Mary Ann Brennan, who has been phenomenal roles, worked for Mattel for years. And she's more of a personal friend, but just, how you find someone who's like living the life or doing things in life that you want to do. So I'm often, picking up the phone and calling her and just as a sounding board. And so, I'm hoping that someday I will be doing the same for other people, but I would say those are three of the most important mentors I've had.
That's awesome. Angela, you've been great. They really enjoyed the conversation. And yeah, where can people go to learn more about you?
Yeah, so I'm pretty remedial on that front. So it is LinkedIn is my main spot right now. So most times I'm talking about business stuff and sharing things that are going on Patagonia in particular right now. And I would say that's probably the best space for me.
That's awesome. Of course, the link will be in the show notes.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Angela, for being on the show. It's been a great interview, and I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for having me. I love talking about this stuff. So I really appreciate it. And this was exciting.
My pleasure.